Hello, my love. Today we are going to talk about the downside of always wanting to be right. I'm going to give you about 4 or 5 things or reasons why this is a disservice to you and give you a few action items to be able to heal from this and move on from that desire, that feeling, that want to be right. I am someone who had this problem for many years, many years. And about 4 or 5 years ago, I started on the journey of healing it. And it took me years to even get to that point. And I can't say that I've arrived. I'm still healing. I'm still growing. I still have times when I have to remind myself of the things I'm sharing with you. But overall, these steps have helped me heal. And if you know someone, I'm assuming if you're watching to this point, you are this individual, or you know someone who has this same desire, this want to stop being right all the time, then this is the right place for you. The first reason wanting to be right all the time is a disservice to you is that it limits you and your desire to want to grow and have wisdom. For instance, if you've actualized all potential, if you've reached the highest levels of actualization, what is the point of learning? What is the point of growing? You know it all. You're basically a god at this point. You know all. What is keeping you? What is making you press on? What's the point? You know it all. And I would think that's a sad day when I knew everything and there was no opportunity to grow, to stretch, to create, because I knew it all. No human is always right. No mortal is always right. Even science, our beloved science, it has been proven to be wrong in certain circumstances and revised. So if you think that you know it all, that is what you're saying, that there's no room for growth. There's no room for extra wisdom. You just are. You are. I am. I am. The second reason always wanting to be right is a disservice to you is it stunts your growth. And I know this kind of relates to number one. I was going to put it all in one lump sum, but I think I want to share it in a different way. Entrepreneurs, business people, it's one thing I grew up with a lot. In business, as soon as I turned 17, 18 years old, I was going to conferences, investment conferences, seminars. I was, buying courses and all these things, learning and growing, trying to find the edge in business, how to be a better leader, how to develop teams, how to get better at sales, whatever it was. And what I learned in that process is when you go to these events, you have these millionaires. And I don't mean famous people, because there's a lot of people who are famous. They're not millionaires, or they're not billionaires. They're not successful. They're famous. They have a lot of fame. You know who they are. It doesn't mean that they are wealthy. Okay. I just want to put that out there because a lot of people don't realize that. Some are, but many aren't. And so these people, not famous, but established, wealthy people, big businesses or small ones, but successful businesses, successful leaders. They're the ones I would see so often sitting in the front seat with the notepad. They're the ones who are asking questions. They're the ones who are locked in. They don't want any distraction. That's why they're in the front usually. This is not every single individual, but I noticed that the successful ones, the ones that I wanted to follow, the ones that I wanted to imitate, they all had this desire to grow, to learn, to find that edge that put them ahead of everybody else. But if you believe just because you made it to be a billionaire or a multimillionaire, or you have a successful business or a successful relationship, so you know everything, then I think you failed. Because these individuals understand that even though they know a lot, there's still more to learn. And even if they don't agree with everybody, they still know that they can learn from the person that they don't agree with. That's the crazy part. When you hit that moment where you're like, oh, I could learn from you, even though I don't agree with you. What you said, I agree with that point in what you said. I don't agree with the whole belief, but this is interesting. Their point of view makes you think different, and which in turn can also help you create differently, help you see differently, even if you don't agree. And I think that is the benefit of understanding that you are not always right, is that you have that open eye, your mind is open to see other things because you are not always right. You are open and receptive to new opportunities, new ways of thinking, new beliefs, new systems, new ideas. The third reason that wanting to always be right is a disservice to you is that it disconnects you from your family members, your friends, your colleagues, the people you love or you admire. People don't want to be around combative people. Your man doesn't want to be around you if you're always combative. It's different if you're having constructive arguments or debates, you're proving points and it's for a reason and it's not done disrespectfully, it's done respectfully and assertively. That's different. But when you're doing it just because you feel insecure, you feel a certain way, or you're anxious, it comes off bad. It comes off negative. It comes off low vibes. This is why when you see that black cat energy, when women, they're out there, they're being assertive, they're respectful, and some people say it's manipulative, but more, I would say they're magnetic. People are drawn to them because they know they're not always right. They just have their certain standard and they abide by that standard, and they don't let anybody else come in their way when it comes to that. But if you are with wanting to be right, if you could accept and acknowledge that I'm not always right, people are more open to be around you because they're like, oh, okay, she may not know everything, but we can agree to disagree. I'll use an example. There are so many times I see online where there's like a couple, a woman and her husband, or, husband and his wife. And the wife, typically in most cases, I notice it's the wife, they're upset because the husband doesn't wash the dishes the way that she wants, or he doesn't drive the way that she wants, and they want to control it. I also see that same circumstance with mothers and like sons, or mothers and their daughters, fathers and their kids wanting to control. But I digress. Coming back to the whole washing dishes thing. When the couple, so say the wife washes the dishes one way or loads the dishwasher one way, and the husband does it totally different than her. There has literally been statistics done or tests done to show that there are thousands of ways to load the dishwasher, thousands of ways to wash dishes. And every single time the dishes will come out clean. Some of them obviously waste more water or use less water, or maybe they take longer, whatever. But they all in the end get the job done. The dishes are sanitized, they are clean. So in the end, if that is true, it doesn't matter how the husband washes the dishes or the wife, or if they do it the same or different, the dishes are still coming out clean. And this is what I mean with agreeing to disagree. What I mean with always wanting to be right, releasing that, because even though you think you're right because this is the way you do it, does not mean that the way they're doing it is wrong. And when I learned this one day, it just like dawned on me. I was like, this is so funny. This is so like, so many people get caught up with these dumb arguments, really dumb arguments, such petty arguments over stuff like this of wanting to be right. But in the end, you both are. So pay attention to those things. If you see that happening in your relationships, your friendships, it may not be this specific instance, specific example, but pay attention to that, because you may not even be right or both of you may be right. I don't know. Being okay with being wrong, it's way more beneficial in the end. Babe, I don't like the way you do dishes, but you get it done. They're still clean. It's cool. You don't have to say that out loud, but like think that in your head. It's cool. There's things I see in the house I live in that I don't agree with, but I move on, keep my mouth shut, and I just move on. Communication is so key. So learn to communicate. The next reason why always wanting to be right is a disservice to you is being right, or saying you are always right. It screams insecurity. It screams that you want to be in control. It screams, I'm childish. And I know you're probably like, what do you mean? But if you really sit back and examine how you've interacted with people, if you do have this issue or this problem that you're trying to heal from, you probably can see sprinkles of this. People who always want to be right tend to be insecure, but they have some kind of something that they feel like they don't have the edge on, that they're not capable of, that they failed at, that they're not, maybe they're envious of somebody of. It screams that. People who are secure don't need to always be right. I'm not talking about cocky or, vain people. I'm talking about people who are secure in themselves. They don't have to always be right. They don't really care. I don't mean it like literally, but they're not really worried about if you think they're right or not. They're just like, okay, your belief is your belief. Cool. That's how I am when it comes to certain beliefs. Certain beliefs, if you don't believe it, that's fine with me. I don't agree with you. I'll respect you, but I don't agree with you. And you're not going to sway me on that. And I'll use an example. A few years ago during the pandemic, there was, as you guys know, there were many people who were forced or we were told to get this specific shot. I did not. And I went to the doctors. I think it was I don't remember what for, because I don't go to the doctors often unless like I had to get like testing done or something, or blood work. And the lady that came in, she wasn't a doctor, but she like maybe nurse practitioner. And she came in and she basically was harassing me because she asked me if I had got it. And I said no. And I didn't say with attitude. I remember I was practicing at the time, that like whole month I was practicing communication and not like being reactive. And she was really triggering me. Like in normal me, like unhealed Alana, would have probably said some stuff to her that was disrespectful, because she was coming at me very, very, very unprofessionally and very disrespectfully. And she was saying different things. I'm not going to repeat what she said, but the things she said, I didn't agree with. I felt like, number one, I'll use an example of I'm a Black woman, and the things that have happened to Black women in Black women's bodies, Black men's bodies, the injustices that I've seen in the world with all kinds of individuals, but I've seen so often with Black women, is crazy. And so I'm like, I honor my body, and I'm not putting anything in my body that I don't know what it is. I never said I didn't have any. I just said I wasn't getting that one. And she went into a whole tangent and very disrespectful, like I said. And in the end, I was just like, okay, that's your belief. That's okay. respect your belief. I was like, but this is mine and I'm not affecting you in any way by not doing it. And what ended up happening was she ended up emailing me actually like about a week later. And she apologized because she was like, she felt she knew what she did was wrong. Because she was very, like, when I say it was like the most unprofessional thing I've ever seen in a doctor's office, very heated. She was very upset. And for her to be that triggered because I had a boundary and I made a decision that I was not swaying on, because I was not swaying on it. I was willing to sleep in my car if I had to. I was not swaying on it. And she knew it and she was mad. She threw a tantrum like a child, very insecure. And I think she was mad because I didn't even budge. I did not give in to her anger when it came to that. And that is what I mean. It's not so much that I'm not saying that that individual, hopefully she did grow and change and heal from it. I don't know if she did that to apologize because it was out of the goodness of her heart. It sounded like it to me based on the tonality of the email, but you don't know. She could have just did that because she didn't want to get in trouble or, you know, have me report her or something, which I wasn't going to do. It just was an experience and I moved on from it. But my point is that desire to be right, because she thought she was right. But if I really look at what her points were, I don't believe she was right. And if you look at the evidence, even right now, I don't even think she was right. I don't know for sure, but I don't think she was right. But I know that what I believe, what I thought was right, should have also been respected and honored. That's my personal preference and my personal experience. And it really warmed my heart that she wrote that email, especially if it came from the bottom of her heart. And that's what I mean, is that some of us, we make decisions. Like I've said things and had arguments where I know that now I was not right, but I had to be right in the instance. I had to prove myself in that instance. And that was the hurt little Lana, who's still healing, who's still growing. And that's why I want you to understand that that conversation didn't make her a villain. It could have made her a villain in my eyes, but it didn't make her a villain. It just made me see that she's also a hurt little girl in an adult body who has different insecurities or different people and things, you know, what is the word? Impacting or influencing her thoughts because of the point she made. And that's okay. And I sent her love. I told her, you know, thank you. Appreciate that. You know, it was no hard feelings. You know, I sent the email to her because there was none. And that's the goal, is to get to that point to where you can be like that in all or most cases, because sometimes the old you might creep in, and just be okay with that. Like, don't beat yourself up because of that. My love, the truth is people aren't always going to do what you want. They're not always going to agree with you. And that's totally okay. And anybody with any type of title, any type of point of leadership or, you know, up there, nobody respects you just because of your title. People believe that, but it's not true. Nobody respects you just because of your title. They respect you because of who you are, what you do, what you give, the person you are, the integrity you walk with, that when you say you're going to do something, you do it. So it's like, if you really want to be always right, it's do it in your life. Be that individual who shows up and does what they say they're going to do, the person who is leadership material. Be the person who, when they know when you speak it, you backed it up, you've done the research, and people will respect you anyways. Like, they might not even fact check you. So how do we heal from this need, this want to always be right, or to be right the majority of the time? The next 5, I think it's 5 things I'm going to share with you, are all steps that I took and that other people I'm sure have taken. And I just did this kind of on my own, just doing my own research, because at the time I wasn't able to work on all these things with my therapist at the time because I was dealing with other stuff. So I did a lot of these first steps here that were affordable. They literally don't cost you anything except for the last one, but they're affordable, free, pretty much. You just have, it's your time. It's the investment in time is what's going to take. Don't beat yourself up if you fall backwards or fall into old habits. You've been doing these habits longer than you've been doing the habits longer than you've been healing from them. So don't beat yourself up if you fall backwards. Just dust yourself off and do it again. If you have to start all over again, cool. If not, come back to exactly where you were and continue on. It's a journey. Life is a journey. You're going to go through this process throughout life, and that is totally fine. The first thing you want to do is start telling yourself a different story. Start to believe differently than you've been believing. You'll notice, if you pay attention, if you're acknowledging that you have this desire and this want for this control, or wanting to be right, or be, you know, whatever. You'll notice different things that you do if you're journaling and you're thinking about it. So I wrote down some thoughts that I think are helpful or will be helpful for you in reprogramming your mind to think differently about wanting to be right. Start telling yourself stuff like, I'm open to new thoughts and ideas. I'm open to hearing other people's points of view. I'm not always going to be right, and that's okay. Just because others think a certain way or believe a certain thought doesn't mean my own ideas are any less valid, nor does it mean that theirs are. And I love that last one because I actually never thought of that until I was sitting here thinking about what I was going to say in this video. And in my notes, I wrote that and I was like, that's really good because yeah, I'm not always right. And they're not always right. And sometimes they are right and sometimes I'm wrong. Like, just because my belief is true or is real to me doesn't mean that their belief is any less valid to them. And to be able to be respectful and in harmony with people is such a benefit. It's such a attractive trait to have. It's not necessarily being agreeable. It's just that you respect other people's beliefs. And that is something that creates friendships and bonds and connections that will last a lifetime. Truly. The second thing I want you to do is journal about the last few conversations you've had where you noticed that you were coming off like combative or you were determined to be right or get the last word. And I wrote down some journal questions and I'm gonna read those to you too. So how did you respond or react in that last conversation, or maybe you could look at multiple conversations and think about them. Were you respectful of their opinions? Were they respectful of yours? Did you give them time and space to complete their whole thought? Or did you cut them off before they could? Like, this is where you assume that you know what they're going to say, so you just cut them off. What could you have done better? What can you do more of in your next conversation? What feelings came up for you when you realized you were wrong about something? There's a quote a question I had wrote in my notes from a while ago. It's from a Reddit post and it was from like 10 years ago. And hopefully I could find it and I'll post it up here. But basically the woman said, how do you feel about being wrong? Like, how do you feel about being wrong? Because that could be the problem too. Most of the time that's what it is. You may have attached being wrong to a negative thing. Like, when I'm wrong, there's like, it makes me feel inadequate or makes me feel I'm not confident enough, or I'm not a leader, or I can't be wrong because I am a leader. Like, so that's what I mean. I'm not trying to tell you how to think or what to answer in the question, but think about that. How do you feel about being wrong? And I thought that question was so deep. And like I said, I would try to figure out who the person was because I had wrote that in my note. The third thing is role playing and or visualization. So for me in business, one thing that I learned growing up is role playing is very important. Role playing is how I learned how to just say and do things with ease. So I didn't have to think about it too much. It became second nature. An example is because on YouTube, my signature at the end of my videos, I always close and I say, with all my love, or with love, Lana. That's how I close my blog too. It's second nature to me. I always say it. Even if I don't mean to say it, I say it because it's just natural to me. And when you role play, if you start to role play things, you'll start to speak those things or think that way when you're in a conversation, and it will come to you naturally. So if you're someone who's usually reactive, if you keep practicing, you're meditating, you're visualizing, you are saying different phrases to get you in this space of non-reactivity and being more open and respectful, you will start to act that way in the conversations. It just becomes who you are, how you interact, how you communicate. Another example is, say for instance, you want to practice role playing, you practice with politics. That's one that's triggering to a lot of people, politics and religion. So say somebody's talking about whatever's going on with the presidents and whatever else. I noticed this is a topic that is very triggering for a lot of people. And so for you, what you may decide is like me. I personally do not care who's in office. And I don't mean that, I always say this, I don't mean when I say I don't care that I don't care, like, it's just not something that affects me in the same way. It really doesn't matter who's in the highest position in this country because I answer to someone much higher than that individual. And so I'm not really caught up in what's going on in the world, if that makes sense. I'm not sitting here losing sleep and stressed out and having a heart attack over it. Some people are, and I think that this will help you move away from that. Letting it go. Letting it go. If somebody believes this thought or has this idea or likes this president or not, that's them. If you don't want to agree with them, you don't like them, you don't have to kick it with them anymore. You don't have to listen to them anymore. But if you have to, or you decide to, be respectful, honor it, and just switch the subject if you need to. I'm sorry, I don't really know much about the presidential election. I don't really know much about the presidents. I don't really watch the news. Can we talk about something else, or just switch the subject? Because I'm very good at just switching a subject real quick. Oh, that's great. Oh, by the way, yesterday I was, or whatever. Or find that thing for you, whatever that word is, to be able to switch the conversation. Oh, that's great. Oh, that's good. That's good to know. That's good to know. I'm thinking about going to this country in a couple months. Have you heard of it? Or have you been there before? You know anybody who's been there? Or I watched this YouTube video that changed my whole life. Or, I read this book, but just, that's what I mean by role playing, is you literally want to write it out or record it and start saying it over and over again, or doing it in your head. It's very helpful. Like, I promise you, it's so helpful. Also, when you're doing this role playing, practice your tonality, your body language. Like, how are you sitting? Are you sitting like being real and is your face scrunched? Practice sitting maybe neutral. Maybe for you it's smiling if that's something you naturally do. Be more relaxed. Relax your shoulders. Breathe. Don't look so tense, you know. Even right now, if you're someone who's sitting here real tense, relax. Relax, breathe in and out. So practice that tonality, because the tonality does make a difference. Your body language does make a difference, because if you're saying to someone you're coming off like condescending and your tonality is like really a certain way, they may perceive that in a negative way. Now, I'm not talking about, because sometimes you're asking a question from your heart. It's just a question and you really are curious. Like, I think that's how you should approach when you're asking questions, when you're in a conversation where you don't agree with somebody, is really come off curious, not like you're trying to belittle them when you're asking them questions. And I think people are receptive of this. And this is something I had to work on, because for me, I could be that sarcastic person who's like, okay, that question's stupid. But no question is really stupid. It's just the person, how we're perceiving it. Like, if we don't respect that person, we may think that their question is stupid. But if somebody else asks the question, you may not think that person is stupid. I know that's weird, but it's like, it's something about the respect factor, and then how you feel about yourself. If you're self-righteous, or your ego's too big, or so on and so forth. So pay attention to your tonality, pay attention to how you're coming off. I would try to approach it as coming off as more curious, not like you're trying to ask to be a jerk. And this happened to me in relationship with, with men, where there's a particular man who, otherwise, I think I would have respected him for the most part. But when he would always try to sway my beliefs in God. And when he asked questions, it wasn't out of curiosity. He was asking the questions to be to make it seem like he was smarter than me. And I used to think, because sometimes you think that because it's your way of thinking. It's like how you get triggered off of something, but that thing you're getting triggered off of usually is just mirroring back what you believe. And for him, he wasn't doing that. He was doing it because he literally felt like his way, what he believes, is the way, and that is it. And I had to realize that, like, no, it's not me coming off as being triggered because of this. No, I'm being not triggered, but I'm being irritated by it because of how he's delivering it. Because if you just would have asked me general questions, I could have said, I don't really know that, or I'm not sure, or whatever it is, or this is what I believe, this is what it says in this place. And, but it didn't come off that way. The conversation was very, to me, disrespectful. And looking back on it now, because back then I already thought that, but looking back on it now as a wiser human being, I know for a fact that was the case in the majority of the conversations. That was the goal. He wanted to trigger. So if you find yourself in those situations, you'll definitely want to practice the next one I'm sharing with you. And that is exposure therapy. You want to, if you're someone who you find yourself kind of being on Instagram or YouTube, and you're in the comments when people say things that you don't agree with, you're attacking people in the comments, what do they call it, Twitter fingers or whatever, you're doing all this, getting stressed out and hyped up and all these things. If you're one of those people, you really want to practice exposure therapy. And by exposure therapy, I mean putting yourself in front of people, or putting people in front of you who you don't agree with. And what I did is, when I was on Instagram, I had people on Instagram that I did not agree with, but I followed them. Like, not super extreme, but like enough people, like maybe 4 or 5, enough so they'll show up on my feed, where I just did not agree with any, like most of the things they said, I just was like, what? Why are you teaching people this? And I put them in front of me, and I did not comment on their posts. By exposure therapy, I got used to seeing this and just being like, that's okay if they believe that, and moving on. That's okay, and moving on. I'm not going to go in your comments and say something. I'm not really even someone who's going to thumbs down a video. I feel like, for me, unless on Instagram there was a feature where you could ask them to stop showing a page, like if they were showing up on your feed with their weird algorithm they started making like in the last couple of years. And so I would say, don't show this to me anymore, or don't show me this page, or I would block it. So that's my other way, is blocking things. But if you want to practice, exposure therapy will be helpful. Or you could also just practice getting in conversations with people and just going out there and practicing how you react to people when they're talking and people you don't agree with. But I think the Instagram or YouTube way is a good way to do it without being thrown into such a negative environment if you know you're going to be triggered by it. It's a way to kind of practice and get baby steps and your training wheels get them going so you can move on to the adult wheels. So definitely check out that and notice how you feel when you are when you are seeing these posts. You could journal about them, or you could just, notice it and then do different the next time, or change your role playing or the different things that you want to say. But it was really helpful for me. Another thing that goes along with what I just mentioned before, because I would consider that my bonus tip, exposure therapy. But number 4 is practicing listening, and like really listening to hear, to understand. This is a big thing that helps heal from that desire to want to be right. If you're someone who tends to, I mentioned this early in the video, but someone who tends to like finish conversations or finish the thought before it happens, and that's something I will do, that actually shows that you don't respect that person. You think that they're below you. That's how I feel. Like if you're constantly cutting off somebody and you want to talk over them, you want to do those things, that you don't respect them, and you think that your opinion, your words are more important than theirs. And maybe that's not your intention, but that's how it comes off. I'm just letting you know it comes off that way. And so if you could practice just listening to people all the time, like when you're on the phone, maybe even when you're in the cash register, even people who maybe you could practice with that friend that gets on your nerves that you don't want to really talk to and they're venting to you, practice listening to them without like responding. Just ask questions and listen. That's all you're going to do, just to practice. And I think that going along with the role playing and exposure therapy and journaling and changing your beliefs, it's a power combo, a good first few steps to practice. But if you need more guidance, you need hand holding, you need accountability or whatever that is, there are therapists out there, there are coaches, and take advantage of those things. Maybe there's even support groups. I'm not very aware if there are support groups in this topic or this genre, but seek out a therapist if you need it. Like, I'm not judging you. If you have the resources, do that. This is where I was saying that there are some parts of these steps that may cost you money, and this is one of them. This therapy will cost money unless you have an insurance plan that covers it. But if you need it, do that. Do that. Don't be ashamed. Honor that. Because therapy has been so helpful for me, but some people don't need therapy in this specific area. Some people are able to do what they need to do. And as I say all the time, I feel like a good therapist is someone who gives you the tools to be able to heal yourself. They're not there to heal you. They're there to help you heal. Not to be your punching bag or the person you vent to, but to be the person that helps you, lead you to the water that you want to go to, and then you drink it yourself. They're not pushing your head in the water like, drink this water, I'm going to save you. That's not what a therapist is doing. A therapist is giving you the tools you need to be able to get to where you need to go. Some of us aren't able to do this work alone. And I would argue that most of us aren't able to do everything alone. So if that is you, don't be ashamed of therapy. Give in, do what you need to do. If I had to summarize this video, I would say that it's be okay with being wrong. You don't always have to be right. Be okay with growing, with expanding. Fall in love with your journey. If you like this video, you'll definitely like this video on releasing control, or you could check out this video here. I will see you in the next video. With all my love, Lana.